Hey there, this is Holly from hollylynn.com. We're going to talk a little bit about what human design is and what it's not, and also focus on my experience sort of behind the scenes with watching the will or ego center. So the willpower, the ego center, and what that looks like for me. So let me get you what you need. I'm in the car, and this is not exactly professional, but this is, okay, if you want to look at your chart, go to hollylynn.com /chart, and you can enter your birth time. You have to have your exact birth time, okay? And then your chart is going to look like this, only it's going to have a lot of little lines, like a lot more of the lines connecting it. But we are going to be talking about this littler triangle right here. So in between this identity center and what's called the emotional or solar plexus. So if this is colored in or not, that's the question for you. And so when one of these centers is colored in, when it's colored in, that means that your gates are, that you've got a gate that connects it to another center, and that you have constant access to the energy of that center. So meaning no matter who you are standing by, no matter whom your aura is interacting with, even if you're sitting like by yourself, if it is colored in, then that means it is defined. So that means if it's colored in, you've got continual access to that center's energy. So all generators have continual access to the sacral center, which is like the little buzzy, it's like the little energizer bunning battery scent. And that's actually what makes them a generator, is they're continually generating this energy. And so they always have the sacral center colored in. And that's what makes them an energy being. There are 3 non-energy beings: projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. But having this colored in makes you an energy being. And so that is... Oh, good. Okay, that transition went well. Okay, so I was talking with a friend a little bit about human design and what it all means. And remember that human design is about the science of differentiation. So really what sets you apart. It's really cool to have seen neutrinos was something the science community was not talking about, didn't really think it was a big deal. And it's really cool. Not at all related. So Ra, the sort of, I guess the founder of human design, really, he was just like a mouthpiece. He started talking about neutrinos being a big deal, like in the 90s, right? And he's not a scientist necessarily. His like background, I believe, is in marketing. But apparently, from what he understood, that neutrinos were a big deal. And so one of the things that makes human design, that in terms of my mind and the validity, is that science has caught up and also also we're like, oh wait, there is something to neutrinos, and we don't know exactly what Ra does. But there is definitely something cool going on there. And so it's the neutrinos that is what was imparted to us when we were born, and when our soul, I guess you could call it, that's my word, when our soul was implanted in our body. So when those two events happen, everything that was in transit, those neutrinos bombarded us, and it sort of solidified who we were going to show up as, or who we had the potential to show up as on this plane this time around. And so especially for the third line profiles, human design, something that you have to experiment with yourself. Like, don't take my word for it. And it's always really awesome when I do a guide session for moms whose children I don't know. Like, I've never met them before. I don't know any of their idiosyncrasies or any, like, their little quirks or anything like that. And yet I'm sitting there talking with the mom of this young kid, and I'm talking about, well, it's really important. It looks like your kid's really picky. So, maybe they want to stay with some food for a while, and maybe, all they want to eat is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for months, every single meal. And that's okay for them. So don't worry, Mom. It's not something that you're, doing wrong, and they're getting everything they need. They, just have this one activation that makes them really want to only eat this one particular thing. And, the moms are like, oh my God, literally, how did you know that? And, she'll go on to tell me a story about how, like, it's a real issue, and like school lunches is a real issue, and like all this arguing is like happening because this child will only eat this one specific thing. And then like this kid like woke up the next day and never ever went back to, I think it was like peanut butter and something else. Never ever went back to that meal again. Like, just one day was just done with it. So anyway, it's like, it's funny accurate. That's what I can say about human design. It's interestingly accurate. And one of the, me having these experiences with people is what keeps me coming back to playing around with and learning more about it. And of course I want to support parents and parenting their kids, especially the ones that are really troublesome or being like nonconformist. Those are my favorite people to do charts for, because guess what? Usually that thing is in their chart, and I don't know it. They haven't like told me about it yet, but I'm, we're doing a guide session and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'll stumble upon it and they're like, oh my gosh, that's the thing. So it's really fun. That, it's just quirky, interesting to me, which I love, that quirky stuff. Okay. Getting to the will center. I had a discussion where this came from. The background is that I posted some stuff about a solar plexus being defined, and this person, a friend of mine who has a defined solar plexus, came in with guns blazing, and not guns blazing, but very confident and sure in what he knew. And he basically proved the point of what I was saying. that people who have defined solar plexus, defined emotional centers, have no idea. They have no access to knowing that there's another way. And I have a defined will center, defined ego center. So that means I'm always having access to the energy that is associated with willpower and ego and being confident and in one sense understanding my worth. And that's a little bit about what the ego center is. And so I have this energy that's like constantly pulsing through, and 2 of my kids don't. And most of my friends actually don't. And of my like inner circle friends. So this experience I had with a friend of mine is what made me understand how much those of us who have defined centers, how much we really can gloss over the experiences of people who don't have it defined. So we're in my living room in my old apartment, and my friend, who does not have that tiny little triangle colored in, she comes into, and we're talking, and she's a good friend in her circle. And we're planning an event, and she's talking about how much to charge and what she is comfortable doing, and because she's in her circle, there's a certain level of vulnerability that we have with each other. And she is also, she was raised very free. Her parents were, her mom in particular was wonderful about not conditioning her to like fit in this box. And so I feel like she is so much more herself and has so much less stories than those of us who had a lot of box getting into when we were growing up. And so she's always, for me, kind of a great barometer, because I can usually like see it on her face, which is what happened. And I didn't know, I wasn't necessarily looking for it. It was one of those aha moments where I realized that my ego, or my willpower, my will center, was pushing her, and that she could not do it. Like, she had no energy to be able to do it. It's so subtle, and I bring it up because I think it's like a really great thing to pay attention to, especially when we make assumptions on what other people are capable of doing. And so that's one of the greatest things about human design, is that it's released me from putting all these, well, you should be able to do this kind of thing, from me putting those conditions on people that I know and love. So anyway, we're in the living room, we're talking, and she's uncomfortable with doing something. And I was like, or you could just, go do it. And the look on her face was so tender and so vulnerable, and she was speechless. Like, she could not defend herself, and she didn't feel the need to defend herself, and yet she was also like I could tell I was like putting myself on her. And once I became aware of the look on her face, it was like a trigger for me. I stopped what I was doing and sort of witnessed the void of energy. And it, again, super subtle thing where I had to, I don't know, I guess I don't know. It was like an energetic noticing thing. And it took me like 10 seconds. And then I was like, I'm pushing you. And I'm really sorry, because I realized that you don't have the ability to just go and do this thing. And, you know, you're awesome being who you are. And it's going to work out some other way. It's going to come to fruition in some other way, in a way that honors your body. So, again, for those of us who have these centers defined, it's kind of like mansplaining, only it's, I don't know, center-splaining. It's worth you doing the research into your defined centers, into your colored in centers, and reading about them, and understanding that it's a very different lived and energetic experience for those who do not have that. So you don't hurt them, and or so you don't put what's right for you on them, because it's not right for them. Willpower is about, the will center, and the ego center is about being able to make plans and showing up for them, even though you don't necessarily want to. And only 40% of us have it actually defined, which means 60% of the world is walking around without the energy to be able to show up and do the things that they like falsely or like committed to in a wrong way. So if I like decide something and I don't really want to go do it, you know, I can pull it from my butt and like go make it happen. It's really, really unhealthy for people, like physically detrimental for people who have the will center not colored in. It's really unhealthy for them to force themselves to do things. And so when I'm meeting with my friends who have undefined will centers, there's no hook for them to be on. If we have lunch or dinner planned or something, and I check in with them and say, hey, are you still feeling it? Or you still want to do dinner today? And they say no, guess what? All right, that's awesome. Go save your energy and do whatever it is your body is wanting you to do with the time that we would have been having dinner or lunch together. Go do it. Like, you're free. Like, I'm not going to hold you to that. So as a parent, like my friend Kate says, different rules for different kids. My boys actually have an undefined will center. And oh my God, can I push them? It's bad. And I can see it, and I can see them want to be able to do the things that I'm, or that they said that they would do, or you know, an idea that we have. I can see that they want to do it. And what ends up happening a lot with people with an undefined will without the knowledge of human design is that they ultimately end up feeling like they have to prove something. So I could see that kind of come across my boy's face. And again, it's something that I'm watching for now more and more. As it's awareness. That's what it is. It's just about like an extra level of awareness and being sensitive to their body and honoring and respecting what they have the energy for and what they don't have the energy for. So good stuff. Big journey. Lots of awareness. Lots of missteps. And they're not missteps. They're, oh, isn't that interesting? That's not how you do that. Okay. Let's go back and start over. So, thanks for listening.